Welcome to Canine IQ Dog Reactivity for Dog Trainers. This video is a short teaser for the course covering the component, the use of counter conditioning in dog training. The next slide that we're going to be talking about is the limitations of pure counter conditioning. Now this will probably get a few people's back up. While I do think that there's a time and place for counter conditioning, I think it's a starting point to behavior modification, but it shouldn't be limited to just that, because counter conditioning has definite limitations. So effectively, counter conditioning is the conditioning of an unwanted behavior or response to a stimulus into a wanted behavior or response by the association of positive actions with the stimulus. So it's effectively swapping one emotion for another based on the arrival of that stimulus. Now it requires an external conditioning agent to actually change the behavior, and usually food is one that's driven. Now, counter conditioning was generated by Mary Cover-Jones for the purpose of eliminating fear of rabbits in a young boy. Now, counter conditioning in its purest sense requires a stimulus of constant intensity. So if you look at rabbits, cigarettes, food, if you're trying to look at counter conditioning to get somebody to stop smoking or to actually stop eating food to become obese, all of those are pretty stable. You look at rabbits, and yes, they've got a few different personalities, but you haven't got a calm rabbit on one hand and then a Monty Python Jabberwocky equivalent on the other one, where it goes around killing everybody in the countryside. Rabbits have got a predictable range. So the importance of counter conditioning relates to the stability or the consistency or the intensity of the stimulus. So if we deal with counter conditioning in dogs, it's almost impossible to deal with the varied shape, sizes and personality traits and the arousal level of trigger dogs with the pure counter conditioning to be effective. So what I mean by that is, because there are so many different body types, personality types, behavioral response types of dogs, it's almost impossible for counter conditioning to provide a constant platform. And I'll give you a really good example. Just imagine you're at work and you've got a new team member that turns up, and they happen to be an incredibly loud, bombastic, arrogant, annoying person to work with, and you absolutely hate that person. You actually want them moved out of your team, but that person happens to be very good at his job, and you have to learn to deal with that person. So that person, over the course of about 3 or 4 months, brings you coffee, brings you food, brings you treats, brings you favorite sweets, all this kind of stuff, tells you jokes, and finally after 6 months befriends you, and all of a sudden you like that person. On Monday, another person turns up sitting to the left of you that's exactly the same personality type as the previous one. Now, just because you now like that person that was bombastic that was sitting to your right, it doesn't necessarily mean that all the effort that he put into you getting to like him carries over to the other person with you getting to like them. And that is the problem of counter conditioning. It is impossible, in my opinion, for a dog to like all dogs if I just condition my dog to deal with a few dogs that show a particular behavioral response. Yes, I might get the dog to like one other dog or 2 other dogs, but I won't get it to like every other dog. Same as I won't be able to get a dog to like all children. I can get the dog to like some children or a few children, but not necessarily all of them. So I think that counter conditioning has got some significant limitations. So effectively, counter conditioning requires a constant external conditioning agent, ideally greater than the impact of the negative trigger. So if we're trying to get the dog to deal with a child positively, and there's a particular aggressive or reactive behavior, then the agent that you're using to condition the dog's behavior needs to be so appetitive to the dog that it has to be stronger than the dog's desire to do the bad behavior towards the child that it was doing to begin with. And the problem with counter conditioning is that you need to maintain that external conditioning agent long term, because the other behavior will effectively regress unless we take the behavior problem solving past the point that counter conditioning offers. So counter conditioning, if you're using it, should be a starting point, and then we need to delve deeper to resolve the behaviors. But I think that there are better ways forward. Thanks for watching this video. If you like this teaser, I'm certain you will love the full courses. You'll find a link to the course in the description below. If you're interested, want to have a look at the other teaser videos as well. They're all free.